Welcome everybody to Singapore. We're here today with Grandmaster Dr. Stephen Skinner, and we're at the end of a very, very successful 16th International Feng Shui Convention, which of course is run by the International Feng Shui Association. And after completing a wonderful extended program, day one was Friday, and of course we kicked off the whole event with a fabulous class from the gentleman to my left here, Grandmaster Dr. Stephen Skinner, where he tied together all the previous classes he'd done on advanced Flying Star Feng Shui from previous years, all came beautifully together in a wonderful full-day class on Friday. That was followed, of course, on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, by 2 days of the International Feng Shui Convention, where we welcomed delegates and speakers from all parts of the world. Our theme for this year was, of course, I Ching, and we had a variety of magnificent speakers and presentations to inform and entertain our speakers, really, and our delegates, of course. Monday was the 4th day of our extended program, and Master Yap Bo Chu from the Yap Cheng Hai Academy in Malaysia ran a full day for our delegates, all on the low pad. Feedback from that class was absolutely superb, and we thank Master Yap Bo Chu for all the work and the effort and the knowledge that he shared with our delegates on Monday. Tuesday wrapped up our 5-day program, and it was with none other than Grandmaster Tan Kun Leong and Master Go Guan Leong from Wei Feng Shui, and they took us all on the most marvellous Yin Yang Feng Shui tour, where we visited cemetery, we visited columbarium, and then Grandmaster Tan took us on various projects of his around Singapore, which of course included duo, and many others not to mention. But today is the 6th day, it's Wednesday, it's a quiet day. After having such a huge 5 days, I think we're all very ready for a quiet day. So we thought we'd sit down on behalf of Feng Shui for Modern Living magazine and ask this gentleman to my left some questions. So here we go. Are you ready, Stephen?
Yeah, we just want to sit down and have a nice chat about, what happened with the magazine.
Absolutely.
And what's happening with it now, present tense.
Absolutely. Well, I'll kick it off with our first question. Stephen, can you recall the inspiration for Feng Shui for Modern Living magazine and the activity and lead up to its creation?
Yeah, I had my own magazine publishing company, and we've done magazines for health and fitness and for the over 50s. And I was looking around for a new challenge, and somebody said to me, well, what are you actually interested in? Motor cars, bicycles, whatever. I said, no, I'm actually interested in Feng Shui. And after I'd explained what that was, they said, well, maybe that's a magazine possibility. And we discussed it, and we thought, well, this is England, of course, this is London. Nobody has ever heard of it. This is back in 1998. And the people who've heard of it think it maybe is a strange Chinese food dish or something like that. And so it was a challenge. So I thought, well, why not? Let's bring Feng Shui out of the out of the past, out of the shadows, and let's do it. And then we talked about it, and do we want a technical one? No, we don't. I wanted to bring it in and make it fashionable, to have high production values. So we knew how to make good magazines, and so we set about producing this one, which is our first one in, was it April? Yeah, April 1998. And we broke all sorts of records with it. The first edition came out with an audited circulation of 120-odd thousand.
Wow.
And we were bigger than Wallpaper magazine. We were bigger than El Deco magazine.
Wow.
And everybody went, what? And it's really because we promoted it well. We had posters in all the tube stations, and I did a number of radio shows and some television as well. And so people got, what is this, what is this? And it sold off the shelves in a week. So we did something which nobody ever does. We reprinted the first issue and redistributed it again. The distributor said, "You're mad, you never reprint issues." We said, "Just put them out there." And indeed they sold. So that was it.
Wow. So the interest was there all those years ago?
Well, we stimulated the interest all those years ago.
Yeah.
Before that it was, what's this?
Well, let's go to number 2. Question number 2. What were some of the challenges you had to overcome in 1998 before the establishment of Feng Shui for Modern Living magazine?
Well, the challenge was education. So I did as many radio shows and television shows as I could and explained what it was. And we imported, as it were, a lot of material from Asia, photographs and things, and put the magazine together.
And I suppose you were probably up against a lot of fallacies, misconceptions, misinformation in those days.
And we even generated a bit of a fallacy ourselves, because we promoted it as an interior decorating magazine because we knew that we wanted people who didn't know what it was to actually buy it. So we spent a lot of time on the front cover, and we spent a lot of time on the posters and so forth. And then we got a curiosity thing going, and so once people had picked it up, then inside we could explain what it was. So in a way, education was the big thing.
Totally. All right, let's move to number 3. Can you describe the overall feeling of the team as they were putting together the very first edition in April 1998? And I'm just going to hold that up again. What was the feeling of the team as they were putting this together?
Well, once they got over what the hell is this that we're doing, I actually hired team members based on their parts, their Chinese astrology. And my objective was not so much to hire the people who could do the job, but to hire people who would work well together. So we had no clashes in the team, and so the feeling in the office was very, very nice.
So all those years ago, Stephen, you were doing employee profiling.
I hadn't thought of it quite that way.
That's the term we use for it nowadays.
And I had an excellent editor, Namita Palmer, who had never heard of Feng Shui before, but she got stuck in and figured out what it was all about and got enthusiastic about it, and then she was off and running, and that was great. I just had to check the technicals that we weren't talking too much rubbish.
Right.
And she ran with it. And normally you'd think, well, where do you get articles for a completely new subject?
Yes.
But the articles poured in. I've still got boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. We did some interesting stuff on London. We did Asian stuff as well. Hold it up.
London, the Flight of the Dragon.
Yeah.
And of course, these articles still stand true today.
Yeah, because if a subject is 2,000 years old, have a look at this one here.
Dragon and Tiger in Hong Kong.
The passage of 20 years is nothing compared to the 2,000 years that Feng Shui has been around. Contrary to popular conception, Feng Shui is not 4,000 or 6,000 years old. It really is only just slightly more than 2,000 years old.
Right.
And we put we put in a bit of educational stuff, like stuff explaining the elements.
Here's some good basic.
5 elements, and then we did stuff on the Chinese characters, how to read the Chinese almanac.
That's a good one.
And I wrote the predictions for the coming month each time. So the thing that really knocked our socks off is that because of the sales on the first issue, we were planning on doing it just bi-monthly. That would be 6 issues a year.
Right.
The distributor said, "No, we need another issue. Can you please turn it to monthly?" And that strained finances somewhat, but we went monthly. And it's a lot of stuff to produce in, well, it's less than a month, because the cycle is more like 3 weeks, because you've got to get it to the printers and so forth.
That's a lot of pressure.
Yep.
Feng Shui in the office, desk for success? There are another couple of articles I saw, so tell me.
Well, desk for Success was a little bit new age.
I know, but it's a very catchy title, and we always do. Not only should we feng shui the office, but we also do need to pay attention to our desks. So tell me, did you feng shui the office for feng shui for modern living?
Yes, and we did it seriously.
Right.
We put water in the right place and made sure that remained fresh. And on the night of launch, which we did in a fabulous rooftop nightclub with the dragon and the full thing, the basement of the building flooded. Now, normally you think of that as a downside, but the Chinese view is that water coming like that bodes well. So, and indeed it did. We had a fabulous launch. So, moving along.
I know there's just so many great articles, the outside room. Let's move on to the next question though, because there's so much information just in that first edition, Stephen. So let's go down to question number 4. What pre- and post-launch activities were organised? I think I asked that one, to market the new Feng Shui mag in both the UK and globally. So what pre- and post-launch activities?
So I really talked about pre-launch, but post-launch we looked internationally. And so we got an American distributor. That was hard to do because in those days Feng Shui is not well known. And we finished up selling about 20,000 in America. And that was not 20,000 because that's all we could sell, but 20,000 because that was the weight we could fly over to America economically.
So you could have sold much more if you would have got them there.
Probably. And we mostly sold in New York and California, as you might have expected.
Yep. Number 5, what was your vision for the mag? And did it change from before and after the launch of the first edition?
Yeah, we gradually moved away from 8 aspirations and easy feng shui to more serious matters like Flying Star or 8 Mansion. So as we developed the mag, we hoped that our readers are also being developed into a more serious frame of mind. But the overall thing was it must remain beautiful. And I had a fabulous designer, and he spent a lot of time making sure that the colors were good and matching and designing the whole shape of it.
Wonderful. Number 6. When did you realise that Feng Shui for modern living would be a success? It was pretty quick, I think.
Yeah, in the first week. We, I was a little bit inventive and hired a team of, well, I won't say schoolboys, but pretty young folk to go around and count the number of issues on the shelves in each of the main W.H. Smith shops and things. And we saw the numbers on the shelves just go down so rapidly that then I knew this was going to work.
It's pretty gratifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
Number 7. I think you've answered this, but I'll ask it again anyway. How was the magazine received globally?
Well, we finished up selling in, I think, about 20 different countries.
Wow.
I mean, for example, we only a handful of copies in Israel and a handful in Hungary, but it was well received in Germany. In fact, Austria and Germany were quite into some of the more technical feng shui at that point. There were architects beginning to use it in Austria. And 1 or 2 of the early feng shui conventions happened in Austria, and they were great. So the reaction in Germany was, we want a German edition. So we actually sub-licensed a German edition, which is very strange because I always figured that Germans probably could read English anyway. But so it went well there. The States I've already told you about,
yes.
And we had a couple of other foreign language editions, but the one that most pleased me was that we licensed a Chinese edition in Taiwan. And I went up to Taiwan to complete the deal, and they recorded a session for Taiwanese television. I never saw it, I don't know whether it came out. But they took our feng shui material in English, translated it back into Chinese, and printed it. So I would provide the astrological material for the next month. They would convert it back into Chinese. We found some good local masters as well who added to the substance of the magazine. And the Chinese edition lasted until about 2006
Wow.
and outsold all the other Chinese Feng Shui mags.
There you go. There you go. Back in 1998, Stephen, Feng Shui was just emerging in the West. Did you have problems, I think you've covered this, but I'll ask again, did you have problems locating authors to write for Feng Shui for Modern Living?
No. After the first burst,
After the initial success, yeah.
we were flooded with articles, some very good, some not so good. And they just kept coming in, and so Namita Palmer did the first sort through and then passed them to me to double check. So we didn't need to go around looking for articles. We of course had to organize photography because we wanted really high quality stuff rather than taking people's snaps. And we'd send photographers out. So that was an expense, but it was well worthwhile.
A necessary one. Absolutely. Question number 9. Are there any memorable anecdotes you can recall during the publication of the 30 editions of Feng Shui for Modern Living between April 1998 and December 2000?
Yeah, because we were well read across the whole social spectrum, we would frequently get fairly well-known folk calling us and asking, can we recommend a Feng Shui master? So I shouldn't probably mention a number of these names, but I'm going to mention one.
Yes,
so
please.
Jerry Hall called the office. Jerry Hall was in those days Mick Jagger's wife, and she asked, could I recommend a Feng Shui master? And I thought about going out and doing the job myself, but the demands on my time were just far too much. So I subcontracted it to Robert, and he went out. He did the business. Jerry seemed pretty happy with that, and a very short period after, she obviously got her head right and told Mick to leave the house, initially to the one next door and then finally completely out of her life, and instituted divorce proceedings. Now, whether you blame the Feng Shui for that or whether the Feng Shui simply cleared the air so that she did what she needed to do, I'm not going to comment. But we had a number of such calls, and various buildings that were being done in London at the time, we were asked to recommend Feng Shui masters to do those particular buildings. But those signed confidentiality, so I can't discuss those. The staff were pretty consistent. Advertising staff changed a bit, but otherwise the editorial staff really seemed to love what they were doing and stuck with it for the full range of issues.
I can't blame them. I think I would have too, for sure. Next question. Stephen, what about the years post-2000, after the final edition, Volume 1, Number 30 was published? Can you explain why the 20-year hiatus with Feng Shui for Modern Living, and where has the software archive been kept all this time?
Okay, well, there was a very short-lived 31st edition published solely in America, but not under my watch, as it were, and that didn't go anywhere. So for the last 20 years, they were first of all sitting in many, many boxes in my attic in London, and then when I migrated to Asia, they came with me. And it's only recently that we figured, well, there's still good stuff in there, stuff that's never been published before, and repeats of stuff that has been published. And so it's a pity to waste it. And so we launched Feng Shui for Modern Living online, and the URL is, it's easy to remember, fengshui.net. And so these articles are coming into what we're calling Volume 2. We hope to do another 30 issues of Volume 2. And I think you might find it worth having a quick look at fengshui.net, because the quantity of subjects there is increasing. And so, for example, this one was our 20th anniversary issue. It's a digital issue. It looks pretty hard in my hand here, but it's actually digital. And then we're moving on from there to other issues. And all I can do is suggest that you have a look online to see the new articles as these develop.
So it sounds to me like Feng Shui for modern living is still very much alive and very well.
Well, it seems to be resurrected, and that for me is very pleasing, because I thought these are going to stay in the attic, the storeroom forever, and no, they're coming out and they're alive again.
And I suppose that really covers our next question, which was, please explain the reasons behind the relaunch of Feng Shui for modern living online and the response so far.
The answer is really the technology.
It's here now. Yeah.
Prior to now, it would not have been practical. It really is very difficult nowadays to print magazines. And the beauty of it being online is we can replace articles, we can add articles, we can
edit, update.
We can edit and update. And I can say that 20 years ago, I wish I'd had that ability. But 20 years ago, you had to finish it, that was it, and that's what got printed, and you had no choice. But nowadays, we have the choice, so that's why.
And I think today people with their hand phones, wherever they are, having a coffee at home, on the bus, they can just pick up their hand phone and go straight to the magazine online.
Yeah, I mean,
past and present articles.
Personally, I don't like looking at a small screen, and I still use my laptop for almost everything rather than the phone.
Laptop, computer, hand phone, it's all there. It's just so digitally accessible nowadays. Okay, next question. Number 12. What is your vision for the new online edition of Feng Shui for modern living, and what improvements do you see for the glossy mag version?
Okay, so my vision is that I would like it to get a little bit more serious. I would like contributions that are a little bit more specific to a particular technique. You know, there are many facets to Feng Shui. After the initial material, then after that Flying Star, 8 Mansion, but there's Shangkong Dagua, there's Qiman Dengjie, there's a lot of other aspects. It's amazing really that the Chinese culture has kept these secrets well and truly hidden from the Western world for so long. And I'm pleased to see that there are probably 3 main Chinese, shall I call them, secrets, which have come to the West over the last 50 or 60 years. So for a start, Chinese martial arts came. Before Bruce Lee, nobody would believe that you could break a brick with the edge of your hand. Bruce Lee fixed that, and now it's an accepted thing. And even fight scenes, which have nothing to do with Chinese, still use Feng Shui, still use martial art techniques. The second thing that came to the West was acupuncture.
Yeah.
Everybody was initially skeptical, how can putting a needle in my toe cure my headache? But now modern medicine has accepted it, and a lot of doctors are training as acupuncturists as well. And the third wave is Feng Shui. Now, the problem with all 3 is the theory behind. If you ask, why can you break a brick with the edge of your hand? Or how can you put a needle in the toe to fix a headache? Or how can you rearrange your house to improve your luck? The answer is Qi. And Qi is the basis of all of these 3 things. And so it's only a matter of time before people realize that Feng Shui is more like a technology. You make certain changes and your luck and your life will indeed change. Nobody can measure Qi, but that hasn't stopped Bruce Lee proving one, doctors proving another, and hopefully us contributing to proving the benefits and the use of Feng Shui.
Well said. Very well said. Question number 14. Feng Shui in the West has matured a lot in the 20 years since 1998, from 8 aspirations to Flying Stars and 8 mansions, etc. Where do you see the Feng Shui industry? And I do believe it is an industry. We just previously had that conversation. If it's not an industry, I'm certainly all for making it an industry. Where do you see the Feng Shui industry in 20 years' time?
Well, I'm more interested in seeing techniques rather than an industry. techniques which can be repeated. It's like the definition of science is that you discover certain rules and laws, you then produce procedures, and those procedures are repeatable. We've now reached the point where Feng Shui practitioners and Feng Shui masters have repertoires of procedures which they can use. In 20 years' time from now, I'd like to see that accepted by the populace, the general populace, and I would like to see more advanced techniques being used which will produce quite surprising results.
Absolutely, absolutely. Moving right along. In May 2004, you were a founding committee member of the IFSA in Singapore. Can you recall that historic event and the role the IFSA, International Feng Shui Association, plays today?
Yeah, that was quite an interesting thing. Three or four masters got together. The president had come up with this idea that just as there's an industry body for travel and an industry body for, I don't know, plastic manufacture, that there should be an industry body for Feng Shui. Now, it's very difficult to say this is right and that is wrong until the industry has developed a little bit further, but standards were needed because people were just doing it off the...
Reading a couple of books.
Yeah. I was sitting in a restaurant in London before that happened, and two guys sat down next to me, and one said, well, I've read these two books, and we went to a class. It was a whole day class, and I think we know enough now to form a practice and start selling our services. Well, I had to really hold myself down not to turn around and say, you have got to be joking. So that sort of approach really needs to be wiped out. And it's like these things are a matter of reputation. The good Feng Shui masters, certainly in Asia, will get a reputation, and then people know who they can go to. Unfortunately, in the West, it's not really the same mechanism. It's how loud you shout or how big your publicity budget is. So I would like it to get to the point where there are qualifications, like if you go to your doctor, you know that he's a surgeon or physician and that he's been to this university or that university. Yes. There are no university courses for Feng Shui, but accreditation as a master, which you can get through the IFSA, is an important credential, and hopefully it will get to the point where people, not necessarily always accredited by IFSA, but by other
reputable bodies.
Reputable bodies. So that's what I hope for.
And I think so just to clarify with our listeners today, so on the 8th of May 2004 at the iconic Raffles Hotel in Singapore, amongst others, but indeed present there on the day was Grandmaster Dr. Stephen Skinner, Grandmaster Tan Kun Yong from Singapore and Wei Feng Shui, Grandmaster Vincent Koh from Singapore and the Singapore Feng Shui Centre, and Grandmaster Raymond Low from Hong Kong and the Raymond Low School of Feng Shui and Destiny. So you got together on that day to begin to create this association in response to
the need.
Growing appreciation, growing use of it in the modern 20th, 21st century.
Yes, we had a meeting, as you said, in the Raffles Hotel, and rather a nice meal in the Pan Pacific, and we became the steering committee, and that started it, but after that there were elections to elect treasurer, secretary, that sort of thing. And to identify which courses are worth doing.
Yes.
So you
and
can
which
always
teachers.
And which teachers, yeah. So that was really it, and it was a logical thing to happen, but it actually happened in 2004.
And I think we have to acknowledge our president, who was also there on the day, and who is also our president still today, Mr. Darren Ng from TTG Asia. A wonderful, wonderful president he's been, and under I think his wise guidance, we've continued to expand and grow, and indeed now the International Feng Shui Association has reached into many countries, and we have chapters in Australia, chapters in the US, chapter in Romania, Poland, and Japan, and our very newest, latest chapter in Mauritius.
You forgot to mention the US. Oh, you did mention the US.
Yeah, Master Jen Stone, President of the US chapter, myself as President of the Australia chapter, Yao Sunasi for Mauritius,
and the total
Krieg for Poland.
Total number of members are now up in the 400
Absolutely,
somewhere.
yeah.
Which sounds like a small number, but these are all people who are practicing it on a regular basis.
Yep. Master Christina Groza for Romania.
Yep.
I think I've got everyone there, and of course
in Japan.
Oh, and Japan, Master Kitsu.
Yes, Kitsu.
Yamanichi.
Yes,
that's correct. And of course, 9 years ago, we introduced the accreditation of masters. As the Grand Masters have often said, you know, we all move on, we all move older, become older. It's very important to train and develop the next generation of masters who will one day step up and assume that mantle as well. So, well done, IFSA. So, question number 16, we're nearly there. At the Shanghai IFSC in 2015, you were the first Westerner to be inducted as a Grand Master by the IFSA. How does this feel, and where do you see the IFSA and its chapters in 10 years' time?
Well, it feels pretty good. It came as a surprise. Although I had done the first English language book on Feng Shui in the 20th century, I have to say there were some missionary ones in the 19th century, but I was the first one in the 20th century. And so I have been always interested in spreading it. And to be acknowledged as a Grandmaster felt good, and but I was taken by surprise. I was simply told this is going to happen, and then I had to step up, as it were.
I think a very, very worthy and well-earned title. I think everybody will agree with that. Last question here.
Yeah, the question is what new books I might have ready. And there's a couple of technical ones, which I won't bother talking about at the moment, but we do have a full-color book on the almanac coming out.
Oh.
But a book that explains the Chinese almanac.
Right.
So, you know, what the characters are, how do you read them, what it means, where to find the information, etc., etc. No, it's only a small book, about 60-odd pages, but I think it's something that would be a good supplement to buy with the current year's almanac to help get the full, more rounded picture on it. That's it.
Brilliant, brilliant. All right, I think as we start to wrap this up, it might be worth noting that next year the 17th International Feng Shui Convention will be happening in Malaysia, and thank you very much to Master Yap Bo Chu and the Yap Cheng Hai Academy for being the sponsor and the organiser in cooperation with TTG Asia for next year. So more information will come out on that. If people want to follow the International Feng Shui Association on Facebook, you can certainly keep up with all the updates and what's going on worldwide in the Feng Shui industry.
And don't forget to have a look at fengshui.net to see what's happening with the newest editions of Feng Shui for Modern Living.
And indeed, Feng Shui for Modern Living, FSML Facebook page too. So please like that, because we often share many articles and a lot of information about the Feng Shui industry as well. So I think we'll wrap it up there, Stephen, and on behalf of all our viewers and all the readers of Feng Shui for Modern Living online magazine, we'd like to thank you for your many, many years of dedication and service to the Feng Shui industry. And we look forward to what the future holds for Feng Shui and this wonderful publication.
Thank you, Janine.